and coming from an industry which has been at the forefront of industrial revolution more than 100 years ago, and there is a new kind of revolution which is going on today. I really envy, and I wonder, and I think a little bit, feeling whether we are left behind, and in a way our industry is left behind, and we are trying to be in a catch-up mode. How many people agree with this? Data is changing the role of the CMO? Okay. So majority of you don't, or they're just too lazy to show the hand? Okay. So I think some of the concepts and some of the things that Shauman touched upon were very profound, and I've been sitting in the other room since morning, and what I've been hearing and what I've been listening is actually quite reassuring with what I'm going to talk about, and hopefully it's not repetitive to some of you who may have been moving rooms. And I want to delve deeper into one particular aspect, which is the role of the CMO and the core of what CMOs should do. Now, how many of you agree with this? Role of CMO, advertising, sales promotion, brand building, market research? Probably, right? I think CMO roles are very, very narrowly defined, frankly, if you ask me. And, advertising, I get emails from someone in purchasing, someone from product development, someone from finance, giving me ideas and give me actually 30 seconds spot scripts, right? So pretty much, the elephant in the room is everybody knows advertising, everybody knows, marketing, so it's easy, right? It's very easy. So what is the role of the CMO? It's so narrowly, probably it need to be broadened, and for it to be broadened, I don't think it needs, we need to add more to the list. I think this is all good, and this is what CMOs do day in and day out. I think what it needs to do is to probably even sharply define it. And I think this is some of the stuff which Shauman also touched upon. And I think if there is one thing that CMOs should do, is there is one thing they should champion the customer and champion the brand. And when you champion the customer, when you champion the brand, that's where the magic happens, that's where the love happens, right? And what is brand? I mean, brand needs to have a purpose, and it is the CMO responsibility to define purpose for the brand and what it stands for. And at the same time, I think CMO is also a representative of the customer. And I can, I come from automotive, and it's a very complex product, more than 3,000 moving parts, lots and lots of people involved in design and development, and it's a long lead cycle, right? It takes us 5 years from drawing board stage to get a product into the market. So it's a really, really long time, and lots change during that time. And I think this is where, the role of CMO, at least in our industry, if you're not true to the customer, if you're not in sync with the trends, this is where we can get horribly wrong. And we have had our share. We've had our successes, we have had our failures in this market and other markets as well. And so I think it's really important for CMOs to get the pulse of the consumer, get the insights, and really champion the brand and make sure everybody in the internal system understands what your brand stands for. Most of the time we talk about, role of CMO as being, outwardly and talking to external customers, but there's a big stakeholders that is important. I think it would matter even in, all kinds of businesses, different kind of businesses. But there are conflicts, and the conflicts are, sales, revenue growth versus brand building, which is probably longer term, takes effort, takes patience, perseverance, a lot of conviction, pressure of short term, and we face it every day. This is how the conversation goes. Rahul, next month we need to shoot up the inquiries by 20%. I need the traffic to go up by 20%. Otherwise, I'm not going to deliver on my sales objective. That's my sales counterpart telling us CEO, right? So Rahul has to deliver this, and therefore, I can't do that. And Rahul is scratching his head, okay, how do I do that, right? Because what magic am I going to do that I will get 20% better footfall, right? And that's where the classic, that's where the spiral starts. And okay, we try some things, we try a few things, things may work out, things may not work out, but mostly these are tactical things, these are short-term things. And what happens next is, I get a memo, let's cut marketing budget because we are away from our sales forecast. So you can see where quickly the story goes, right? And so therefore it is crucial that, the CMO also takes this responsibility and really connects with the internal stakeholders as well, and really grows his or her influence within the organization. Very, very crucial. And the conundrum is, typically, a lot of speakers have been also talking since morning, the balance between the rational side and the emotional side, the creative side, the left brain, right brain, what comes first, and that's really a conundrum, because there are real pressures. The business results need to be delivered, and CMOs are responsible for that. At the end of the day, the bottom line matters. So what comes first, whether it is data or whether it is insight, whether it is intuition, what's the real conundrum? And this is where I have a point of view. I want to share my point of view. Maybe some of you will agree, some of you may disagree, but I think that will make for a good conversation. So I will put the matter to rest using data. And this is a fantastic book. It takes effort to get through the end of it because there's a lot of data in this. And this is largely about behavioral science. And the sum and substance of his human brain works, we all understand left brain, right brain. It works in, what Daniel Kahneman has said is system 1 and system 2. And system 1 is the emotional one, the intuitive one. And 95% of the decisions that we make are based on our intuition or feelings. Things like, you're driving, every day, you don't apply too much of mind, right? Sometimes you have to go somewhere else, but you take a wrong turn to the workplace, right? That happens, I'm sure. Whereas the rational one is, it's slow, it processes. That's where, a lot of data. It's slow to make decisions, and but 94%, and this is how the customer is also thinking, right? The customer is also thinking intuitively. They feel first, they decide first, they justify later why they made the decision. That's the fact of life, right? We all make purchases, we all take decisions. We somehow arrive at the decision which feels right, and then later on, when someone asks, hey, why did you take that decision? Why did you buy that car or that phone? We end up, coming up with, this memory, that RAM, battery life, and so on, right? That's what happens, right? But the crux of the matter, you have to connect with the consumers at an emotional level. If we are not able to connect, the battle is lost. And then you go down the path of, tacticals and so on. So I want to put to rest, I think data is important. The other point Daniel Kahneman also makes is the intuition gets formed based on data. When a mother hugs her child or newborn, the bond, the trust which develops is the data that the child gets as feedback from the warmth or from the voice of the mother. When a father throws the child in the air, first few times maybe child is scared, right? But after that, the trust develops, the feelings bond, and then the child knows that he or she is safe when the father throws him or her. So that's how, intuition builds, right? Intuitively, we trust some people, and these are signals which are non-verbal, and we are always leaking, we're saying something, but we mean different. I think we leak, all of us leak. And that's how, same holds true for brands, right? If you say something and do quite the opposite, I think it sends a very contradictory message. It just confuses the consumers. And this is where I think, and it's scary at times, what this study says is you can also manipulate, right? Because if you know that you can shape the biases or the intuition by repeat, and that's what advertising is about. And I don't want to get into morality of advertising and communication, but that's what happens to all of us, right? So fundamentally, we are all intuitive kind. This is how we make decisions, but the intuition is formed basis the data. So though the two are not inseparable, they're actually quite connected. We just need to understand the relationship. So having made that point, clearly I stand on the, I over-index on the intuitive side. I think today's time, the data is really, I think there's a lot of data. There's so much of data that actually sometimes I worry, you know, what do you take of it? And how do you make sense of this, and how do you make sure that you're making timely decisions, because time is also of the essence. And that's where it gets really challenging. But at the same time, on the positive side, I think the struggles that we have, the competition that we have for resources are always less. We need to do more with less. And there's always less money. We need to make those tough choices. Media makes decisions and so on. Data comes really handy. Sometimes when we have to pitch for a certain case or a product, data comes really handy. And as well as, you know, the insights that we gain through data, and now there is a lot of technology. Probably you know better about the technology than I do. It really provides insight so that we can make those moments of truth memorable, relevant, and we can establish the emotional connect. So I think you know, these things you can see it on the screen, but what a CMO need to do, and the role needs to evolve. It's not really changing in my view. I think the role has been fundamental, championing customer and brand. Is as long as you understand that these are the traits which are required so that you can actually live that role. So the evolution has happened. The person who's occupying the role probably needs to learn, need to be on the edge and learning new technology, learning new sciences, etc., etc. But data is there, and I think it can set us free. So now I move on to kind of, you know, some specific case studies, you know, and this is kind of, I'm sharing some internal stuff as well. I have 3 of these. So back in 2014, we had a real problem in India. And the problem, this is our funnel, this is how you can read through this. But basically, you know, whenever we spoke to customers, customers would tell us, great products, but your cost of ownership is a suspect, right? Fair point, that's the data point. And while the reality was far from true, that is what the consumers were telling back to us. And this is the experience or the perception which has got accumulated, and that is how it has become their intuition, right? And that's how consumers were kind of rejecting us and not giving us the kind of results that we were hoping to get. We were doing okay, but not as much. So what we did was we went back to, you know, and this is years of data, and we have been running this track on a continuous basis. We do this kind of almost daily basis. This keeps going, but reported quarterly. One of the key metric that we focus on is the favorable opinion. Are the customers having a favorable opinion about our brand? Why that matters? Because there is a clear and positive linkage between our ability to price and market share and revenues, and that's what matters at the end of the day. So this is the most crucial metrics. So the bottom funnel is important, is what drives the traffic and so on, but this is the key, and this is what we kind of, you know, and we had a gap of 13 percentage points versus the leader in the market. So when we dug deeper into this funnel problem, what we found was the upper funnel is driven more by things which are product attributes and feeling attributes. So things like durability, quality, reliability, trustworthy, which is feeling, safe is again feeling, fun to ride. The bottom 4 are largely feelings. And the barriers were really the cost of ownership, but the cost of ownership perception is not driving favorable opinion, which is supposed to drive my revenue. And if the challenge is revenue and market share, then addressing cost of ownership is important because it impacts the showroom traffic, but it doesn't drive purchase at the end of the day. So given that, then we had the transformation strategy. Again, you know, at every stage we had data helping us. It was a longish period from diagnosis. We threw all the traditional researches out of the window, and we went with new stuff, semiotics, and all the new kind of, and went through various stages of diagnosis, understanding the customer, understanding the insights and the pain points, and then we went about plumbing, and we started to fix the issues that we had. And the large issues that we had around the cost of ownership were at the network stage, which is the channel and where the experience gets delivered, the brand gets lived. We may be saying whatever as a corporation, but ultimately the brand experience resides in the hand of the sales consultant or the service advisor who deals with people, and where the human contact happens. That's where the brand gets built or destroyed, right? At least in our industry. It still happens, hopefully, for some years. And then, communication came last. So communication is not the end game. By communicating alone, we can't fix an issue. So we went about that, and this is what we have been able to achieve. We got to actually the gap more than half, from 13 points. It went to actually 6 points. We've lost 1 more point more recently because the competition also moved, and that's reality of life. We may be making as much progress, but the competition also doing, right? It's the same. But it worked. The other issue that we typically folks face is the short-term focus, and this is the typical dilemma and challenge. What comes first? And business results matter, because if I don't have business today, I don't stand a chance to survive tomorrow. But we were getting into a kind of a hole, right? And we were spending all of our media money way back then, largely in tactical mediums. And what it meant was, look at that, print 80%, traditional, completely, mind-boggling numbers. And this is when I kind of, came back to India and kind of took over this role, and we were hardly any brand building or any upper funnel kind of communication. So this was a real problem for us. Again, data comes handy, and we kind of deployed marketing science, and it's sometimes when you throw data, the regular response is, no, I don't believe in this, because all I care about is, I need to see the ad every day, right? So it takes time, perseverance, a lot of communication with the internal stakeholders. That's really crucial, and this is what we have been. This is where we are today. From a 9% odd digital, probably that's an area of interest for you. We're currently at 26%. I believe we are almost double of in terms of percentage spent versus the industry. And that's been a phenomenal journey for us. And our channel partners, our dealers were not with us. Neither were our sales team. And it took us a while. And this is where the conviction and the insights matter. And data comes handy. And the third one, okay, we moved the media mix, so what? We have to still sell cars, because this is, even as early as 2016, only 2% of our sales were attributable to digital medium. And then again we went back and we looked at, and I think a lot of cool technology today which is available helped us, and we moved it straight away tenfolds, right? 20%. And this year, middle of year, we are tracking 29%. We are shooting for a 40%. If I'm able to deliver my sales, 40% of my sales out of 26% of my spend, I think that will be a very cool outcome. Our cost per sale from digital medium is 15% of traditional print medium. That's significant save. But then this is where I think it's all good, and this is where, sorry, this is the last slide probably. So the challenge also starts here, and this is where I see risk in we going down the same negative spiral again, because the problem of measurability, the problem of attribution, while we are not spending in the expensive medium as much, digital medium is also turning out to be quite expensive. And the other challenge that medium has, and I really envy Shaumin, who's able to churn out multiple creatives dynamically. That's a cool thing to do. We are far from that. We are trying, but we don't have that kind of data for our customers, because we just don't capture that kind of data. But that's where I think we need to move to. But ultimately, in summary, I'll just leave a few words. I think while there is a lot of data and it is inundating, sometimes it is confusing, we can leave that to all the technology. I think ultimately today, we are at a time where the hard work or the crunching part can be taken care by machines or algorithms, and marketeers can finally be free to actually think about and strategize about how to develop and generate love for the brand. So that's where I leave you with. Thank you so much patiently.